You can walk for miles in the evening to clear your head. Still wake up each day, oh, in the city of the dead. So many things you can't undo. Well, you can only push through and turn all your dirt over until the thing that grows is new.
Welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3% at the University of Rochester, in which we take one book, or in this case 5, break them down bit by bit, talk about them, analyze, have fun, make jokes. This season is all Ann Quin all the time, and today we will be talking about the second half, or the complete volume of Berg, her first published novel, which is great. I am Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox. How you doing, Brian?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm surprisingly less pessimistic than I thought I'd be after the election day.
Oh, you're not drowning in the red wave, huh?
Yeah. Where is it? Coming.
Well, you know, it fits perfectly with Berg. All of the seaside and the waves and corpses and yeah.
Exactly.
Sounds like the day after a beautiful Super Tuesday.
Didn't Trump Jr. refer to it as a bloodbath? Mark, good job, man. Good job. But as long as Herschel Walker doesn't make it, I'm happy. Anyway, so how are you doing? Good?
Yeah, I feel like I'm losing my voice. I've been, I guess, talking too loud when I lecture, so I need to be, I guess, more quiet or something. But I just, I don't know, I talk too much. So other than that, I'm feeling great. I need a cup of tea or something. That would probably be good. But other than that, totally fine. How are you?
The same. My throat's okay, but I had to teach today and I talked too much as always, and probably too loud too, and too fast. All of the above. Just makes listening to this podcast joyful for everyone, I believe. Yeah.
You had another weird thing as we're talking about weird things that we're seeing. I saw that the WNBA player that's incarcerated in Russia, she got moved to a penal colony apparently for her 9-year sentence.
That's intense.
I like how upset everybody is about that, and I think it's appropriate to be upset about that. I can't imagine what it'd be like to live in a country where you could go to jail on drug charges and be stuck in jail over drugs. It seems like unconscionable. Like, what kind of human rights violations do we have going on here? If somebody wants to use a substance or something, that should be their choice. And to be incarcerated for that,
have your whole future taken away from you.
Seems awful. I don't. Yeah. I'm glad that's there and not here. I'll tell you that.
Never been here ever. I got how many? I don't even know how many robocalls or text messages I got, but I got one from Kathy Hochul the other day to be like, "Vote for me for governor," and I was like, "Cool, will do. Thank you for weed." And they didn't reply to that one. Just no fun. Usually they reply for some reason. If you makes it a fun Friday night. So, anyways, Berg. So we left off after he thought that he had killed his dad, got him wrapped up in a what do you call it, like a rug, and was going to dispose of the body in some way, shape, or form, or take it with him, or do whatever and move on. So that's where we left. Things get increasingly way more fucked up and surreal and funny and strange in this half of the book. But as a general overall beginning point, what's your impression now?
Fun book. I think this is her debut, correct?
Yes.
Stunning. I don't like to use the word stunning very often, but stunning debut. I mean, super strong, really impressive. I love the intensity and the energy and just everything falling apart by the end of it. How, like, I don't know, farcical and satirical and gosh, the landing on the ending was just brilliant. Loved it. The voice at the end is so good. It's chef's kiss. Just staring off. We'll get to the end and talk at it when we get there. But oh man, the note that echoes and resonates and rings at the end is just like I want to teach that ending. Like, and I want to learn how to write that ending. It's so good.
When I was reading it last night, I was like, man, this is the sort of book I would love to be in a class and talk about or have to write about, because there's just so many. It's so good in the way that like that kind of classic English major literature can be, where it has all the pieces that are like Brian Evanson's essay in the Review of Contemporary Fiction, which I read this afternoon, remarks on like how this is really her most conventional novel. And there's other references to how it really does play with the tropes of popular spy novels or mystery novels at the time. Like there's a lot of references to like the plot thickens, or here's the clue, or maybe maybe it'll be solved this way. And also like in that way echoes the first couple of Robe Gray books that are like faux detective novels, including Voyeur, where it's like a man not trying to find the murderer, but to figure out that he's the murderer, which sort of mimics this too. But it's got all of the right like Oedipal elements, the like Jungian references, all the like things that you could parse out, and it's still like just fun to read at times. Like I was laughing, like literally laughing out loud reading this last night in parts, which we can get to too. But it was just like pure joy once he kind of tipped over that edge and had the bearings of like where everything was, and he's killed his dad, and then everything just like falls apart.
Well, you do this so well. Why don't you do it one more time? Where give us the Cliff's Notes highlights of what is the plot that happens in the second half.
Okay, second half. Let's see if I can do this because I haven't looked back at my notes. But so they are going to leave. He takes the rug containing the body to the train station and deposits it there. to wait. Occasionally things like, I wonder if anyone will notice, because how long does it take till it smells bad?
Carrying a giant burrito of a person. I'm just gonna take it to the train.
Then he starts being accosted by the tramps, the like homeless people that are in town that once tried to burn the effigy, or burn the dummy, the ventriloquist dummy, as an effigy. He then realizes at one point, because when he's like sneaking into Judith's room, who he's like really put his mark on now that he's going to like, you know, replace his dad and be with Judith. He's in her room and ends up dressing up in all of her clothes. And his dad comes in and tries to seduce him, which is interesting. And then the next chapter is one of my favorites, where I just started laughing immediately, where he's like lying in bed and he's hearing like her making noises, and he's like hasn't spoken to her. Everything's like on ice, like with the two of them entirely on ice at that moment in time. He's like, oh, clearly she wants me to be over there. He like goes to her door and just like knocks once and then just goes in and like basically like tries to seduce her at that moment. Then they end up with his dad coming back, and the two, at least the one, I think there's two of the tramps coming to try and attack him. And for what is like sort of unclear, I actually have a question about that, over like what their actual motivation is. Like, it seems that one, that they want to get him because they know that he attempted to murder someone, but what he attempted to murder was the ventriloquist dummy, which he does go and which he does retrieve by sneaking into the train station and through the skylight and getting out the rug and carrying it out, and like finding then that it was a ventriloquist dummy and not. I know he doesn't even find out then. Judith tells him later that that's the case. So he is trapped in his room. He breaks through the partition to hide from them. They leave. He does get into a later fight with them, in which multiple people are in the ocean or in the sea, and at least the one tramp with the scar down his face dies, and he sees him. He thinks he's going to die, but instead he comes out of the water, quote unquote, reborn, to use some of the biblical stuff that's really loaded in here. And then he goes to Judith and makes love to her for the first time, but is always vacillating between like, this is great, I want to be with Judith, she's wonderful, and like, I need to get the fuck out of here now. Like he's constantly and have domesticity simultaneously, which is wonderful. And then, and she, when they do make love, she refers to him as his dad's name, Their whole living situation is a mess because his door is shattered. There's no partition. And at the very end, there's a man coming to move into his former place that looks suspiciously like his dad in disguise, has like the bird cage that was like his dad's bird cage, and seems to be like replaying out this like triangle, but now in which he's in his dad's place, and this dad in disguise becomes him at the next door. Did I get all of it? Most of it?
Yep, I think that's the gist. Yeah, all in 60 pages or so. Yeah,
there's a lot. There's a lot in here. Yeah. Which of the sections was your favorite, or what part did you stand out to you?
I think what stood out most to me. So like the first half felt like very heavily Oedipal, if we'll use that as a word, right? And like pretty obviously so, right? Like I'm gonna off my father, replace him, and what I noticed in the second part is the imagery over and over again with butterflies.
Oh yeah.
And the like being reborn, changing. There's a lot of butterfly imagery and diction in the second half of it, which I thought was really interesting. Especially with what happens.
There is like very Freudianly too, like the resolution of the Oedipal complex from the Freudian perspective would be transferring the feelings for the father onto a symbolic object that can be removed, which would be the ventriloquist dummy. And then for Freud, anything water related is sexual intercourse, female, and that his coming out of it is like that rebirth too. So a lot of those things seem to still like filter through that lens a little bit.
And I almost kind of like thought of the imagery of wrapping something up in the rug, right, and then coming out of it as well. You get a butterfly brooch at the end of it. Why that of all things? There was, what was it here? I can go through and kind of I notated where all the butterfly stuff is, but yeah, it was very like Oedipus, butterflies, and the religious throughout on this part for sure.
Yeah, and this is a section, or this, I don't remember if in the first part it had as many of these, but I marked a number of these ones where it gets really surreal, like dreamlike.
Yes.
And it's just like, what is happening here? Like, is this like, what is real? And there is an interesting way, I think it's in the Brian Evanson and Joanna Howard, I think is her last name. Joanna Howard essay about kind of like her style and what makes her style unique. And without like completely, well, here's their line. Formerly Quin's work, and there's a typo in here, it misspells Quin, just FYI, Delkey proofreaders. Formerly Quin's work remains, even for the most knowledgeable readers, quite challenging. Much of her work is relatively unpunctuated, and her exterior and interior dialogue, from speech to many different manifestations of thought, are often elided into the exposition instead of being set off. Narrators, whether first person or third, remain intimately behind the shoulder of the characters, offering the world through a lens made wavery by subjectivity, while refusing explanation or interpretation of the character's interior states. Rather, the narration functions like an invasive camera, with actions and events unfolding cinematically simultaneously with the dialogue and the narration. The rest of it I won't read, but it does have that quality, like it could go on as fine, but quality of like where everything's kind of happening all at once. And it is,
it would have been, I think it would have been much more difficult, but you broke me with JR.
Yeah.
Which was like, oh, this is no problem.
Yeah. Totally different.
Easy peasy. No, makes total sense. And I think too with this in the second half too, it's much more, instead of like that interior dialogue, you get more of kind of the fever dream part of it, where it's going faster and it's accelerated and it's more poetic and dreamlike.
Yeah.
Like two quick little I'll hit you with like two quick little butterflies that helps prove that point that we just talked about as well. So like on 116 in the Delkey version, it says, as he stared at the wigs, they still lay scattered about the room, a brilliant plan, like a butterfly settling on a large flower in a huge but otherwise bare garden, grew into information. So that kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look, next page, it talks about ego of man, vanity of, so we can get into ego, that fun stuff. But then I'm going to jump to 152, where you get more of that fever dream poetic part of it, where you just start getting hit with like, wow, this is beautiful writing. About halfway down on this big paragraph on page 152, a chrysalis, heart. Oh, that's an interesting word to use when talking about what you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
A chrysalis heart formed on the water's surface, away from the hard, polished pebbles, sand blowing and elongated shadows, away faster than air itself, dragon, world, be given to the sliding of water, to forget, be forgotten, premature thoughts, predetermined action, and a moment fixed between one wave and the next, the outline of what might be ahead on your back, staring into space, becoming part of the sky, a speckled bird's breast that opened up at the slightest notion on your part, but the hand, like, it keeps going, like bang, like you just feel it, like this momentum and this building. It's so unlike what's in the first half.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, a way to build to the climax of the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But super butterfly all in the second half for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is really interesting. It is, yeah, there's a lot to like that. That's what I mean. Like, this is a book that you could use like for a class. You could pull out those things for like a paper, and it would be really interesting to like track some of them. Oh, the thing that I left off in telling the story is that in the end, the body of the scarred man is brought to the station, and Berg goes and tells them that it's his dad, and that his dad's been missing for like 28 years, and that this is his dad, and his dad is dead, and that he has like this defining characteristic. But there's no actual proof that his dad is dead at all. Which is why I say, like, when the person moving in seems to replicate that, and that is one of the kind of weirder, strange parts of it too, where he's just like, yep, dad's dead.
But, is there any way to identify him? A giant scar on his face.
Giant scar. So one of the things I had forgotten about, but is referenced in this essay, is that there was a movie made of this book called Killing Dad, or How to Love Your Mother is the subtitle, I believe. And it's available on something called that I signed up for free. What was it? I sent you the link. Tubi TV, which you can have a free account, and you can watch Killing Dad from 1989. And it has a whole 4.4 rating out of 10 on Internet Movie Database. So I'm guessing it's going to be wonderful. But I really do kind of want to watch that too.
That's better than the Amber Heard movie that you were fascinated about.
That movie. I think London Fields, which is one of those zero Rotten Tomatoes movies that didn't exist, it should be terrible, is goddamn amazing.
Who is the author of that? Amos? Yeah, Martin Amos. Okay.
Yes, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and Billy Bob Thornton, and it is wild.
So Lucky Jim's son gave us London Fields movie. Perfect. Yeah.
Man, speaking of things that are funny, like I'm flipping through my notes from the beginning here to see like where everything kind of, I've got a lot of them, but like one of the things that I noticed in the second half that I don't remember being as much in the first half is how it's kind of slapsticky.
Yeah, it gets very farcical.
Like, yeah, like there's this part where they pick up they're gonna leave with the rug and with all the stuff. Berg followed her down the stairs. The cases bumped against his legs. The body slid down his back. Stopping, he hoisted it up again. Halfway down, they saw the landlady emerge and wind up the hall clock. Judith hissed, drawing back. Only when they were sure the coast is clear did they dare go down, but now like thieves, suspicious of their own shadows. But it has that kind of like both spy and like sort of like cinematic, like almost slapsticky. Like I could see him struggling with trying to carry this thing, and I'm hiding in like the shadows so the landlady doesn't see them. And like it's a little goofy in that way, which is like like the Oedipal, like really intense, like I want to fuck my dad's mistress. But
yeah, well, even too, like just the comedic timing of, oh, here's a letter I have for you.
Oh my God.
You know, it's been here a couple of days. Here, you might want this. Like, you know, it just kind of happens to show up right at the perfect timing of it. You know, it's satirical, it's comical, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I see where some of the other ones there. If I wanted to jump to that, the part that I think was very funny when you read out loud is on page 120, 121. This is the part right after his dad tries to seduce him. And the beginning part is like, the beginning paragraph is really like all about like an addiction to being, to fucking up. Like it's such an interesting little section about like him being like, yeah, making mistakes are great because you're going to get punished, but then you're going to get cuddled afterwards. Like he's even talks about like antagonizing his mom, by, like harassing her. So as a kid, there's a section that's once on 121, once a huge snowball made entirely by yourself, hidden behind the shrubbery, blistered fingers against your mouth, listening for Edith's steps, her Sunday best hat knocked off, her flushed face as she took you inside, produced the leather strap, the buckle end for you, for naughty boys who never loved their mother. It becomes like almost S&M-y. And then when he says like, you know, the sheer delight of not crying on that is great, because then later her sighs, her soft kisses covering the bruises, the wiping away of blood that took longer, far longer than the cause. And that sort of addiction to like doing bad to get the punishment, and then the makeup part of it after is interesting. But it was really the next paragraph where I think it starts to hit this like really funny bit. Who cried now? Jerking sobs, a vehicle that might start up a hill. Berg leaned towards the partition. Definitely a woman crying. Judith by herself? Impossible. For such a woman, surely an audience is invaluable. Just the part that I was like, couldn't stop laughing. Whereas it's like, yeah, no, she's not crying alone. She's like one of those women who has to be performative and have an audience and is crying. And so he's like, you know, what else can he do? So he goes back over there, and then he he knocked, but without waiting for an answer, entered. He's gone. Oh God, he's gone and taken everything. He'll never come back now. What shall I do? What can I do? Berg stood in the middle of the room, stroking the velvet-covered couch, occasionally picking off stray bits of cat's fur and flicking them onto the floor. Best to wait until she's had a good cry. No sense out of her at the moment, hardly aware of my presence, crouching half naked on the bed, clutching the pillow, biting a corner of the sheet. Gradually, the moaning stopped, the sniffs subsided, and her breathless monologue now took on more calculated sentences. It's like he goes in, he's like, quote unquote, concerned. It's like knocking on the thing, concerned, goes in, no response, and just sits there like literally like picking off like fur and being like, wait till you settle down and start making sense again. Was wild stuff. I love it. There's something about the tone that I think is so wonderful, and parts of this and so undercuts him. That is one part too, where what I think is interesting is that's the moment where Judith and Edith live their lives in parallel. Like you see a letter from Edith about like, oh, you know, we can't pay the rent. He took all the money. He ran away. He's gone. And then Judith, like at essentially a similar age, is also, you know, going through that situation in which he's gone. The same guy is gone, has taken her stuff. They have to pay the rent. So she's set up as being like a real mother parallel at that point, which made me think for a minute that it would be like both. There's no indication that it's true or not true, I guess. But like if she were pregnant by either one of them, would be like a real Oedipal last cherry on top to like the whole messed up situation.
And I mean, just to like hit it home on, you usually wanted to go the Greek myth routes, right? On page 88, to her, it's all a myth. How adaptable women are. Practical. And then a little bit later on 106, to take his father's corpse back home to Edith, the trophy of his triumphant love for her in a Greek play, they'd have thought nothing of it, considered to have been a duty. the final act of what the gods expected from their chosen hero.
And that also bounces off of Judith as being Judith, the one that chops off Holofernes' head in Revenge. So that's there too. And the one thing I didn't notice until the end, or maybe it wasn't there, but like her name too is Judith Helen, which is very Edith. Like I kept having to remember which one was which, the mom and the mistress. They are similar in that way. It's
yeah, so there's a lot of like fun like layers of this idea of changing, of metamorphosis within it.
Yeah.
So like even like things as simple as when he puts on women's clothing and the experience that he has with that and putting the makeup on, and like again, I just think it's really brilliantly written. And yeah, this is a fun one you could pick apart and just start pulling on threads and seeing what's on the end of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like one of the ones I marked is on page 128 near there too, where Judith tells essentially his dad's story, but it's like a different lens than like obviously than the one that Berg's mom has described, and is like, oh, this is why he always would get treated well. He got everything that he wanted, which is similar to Berg saying like, like the pain because then I get the pleasure afterwards from the comfort, but that his parents screwed him up and didn't let him go into becoming this great singer because he would have been a great opera singer or whatever. But now, he sounds terrible because they touched his life. You never knew he would have been amazing. He could have made a huge business out of it. Like that's the part too. Like the part that makes it funny to me and the irony of it is that all these people have like these bombastic sort of like views on like what's going on in the world, and then they're quickly undercut by like when even at towards the end where she's like, what, we all knew it was the goddamn dummy, like the people at the people at the train station were like, what is this guy doing with like this rug? And she's like, and you left and you just dropped your ticket, so I just went in and like looked at it like and this is as like hauntingly dramatic as you're making it out to be. And like and his dad's like over like bombastic sense of like his self, and like that's all undercut over and over again. It's really that part I really thought to like be nicely subtle, where it's not like you have like an unreliable narrator, which we do, but one that's like also just a little schizophrenic. Like the writing is a little schizophrenic, and I think as things go on with this season, we'll see that she gets more and more kind of schizophrenic in her writing, where it's not always elucidated like who's speaking or where, or if it's past, present, like things are happening almost like I said at the beginning, like almost all like simultaneously, and you're sort of like parsing through this onslaught of information and images. And this is like the most paced of them, but it still has that element like where like that's why I was like I got a little confused when like they're attacking him, because it's like jumping through like things that are surreal and dreamlike and clearly not real to like things that actually do seem real, to like who's saying these words, to this is a vision of the past where he's getting picked on by other kids at school, to like his mom complaining about him getting his clothes dirty. Like it's all of that like rammed in one after the other, but without like being like too much. It all like has its place. It just doesn't give you a lot of clues as to like where you are when you're following it. You have to pay attention. Like you have to pay attention. That was one of the notes I just wrote on there is, what the fuck is the use of a paragraph? Like the way these paragraphs is wild, because like one paragraph can be one setting, one place, two characters. Beginning next paragraph could be like, much later in time, like hours later, different place, different characters, different setup. Like the paragraph break is like not just like continuing like with a linear story, but really just like, oh yeah, now it's like a cut scene. Like like the paragraphs are sometimes just like cut scenes. It's very like jarring when I think for people that aren't used to reading things like what we read for this podcast. They're probably like, I don't know what's going on, I'm lost. But it is a book that kind of makes you trains you into having to like pick up and pay attention to like those details.
That's where it reminds me, like I kept thinking back to JR again as well.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, like it could be, it completely changes scene, time, whatever, place, and it's just another paragraph, and it there's no like nice setup to it or whatever. It just cut next. Yeah.
Cut next. Yep. Love it. The
other thing I love with this as well, when kind of, you know, playing off tropes or whatever, but one of my favorite types of story is when someone is delusional, or they have these like delusions of grandeur, and they're going to go pursue that, and they have no skills whatsoever to accomplish a goal. And so you watch them struggle, and it's usually sad and comedic, which the second half of this just completely felt like that to me, like with the disposing of bodies. I thought it was fantastic, of like completely inept, no clue what you're doing. This is comedy. Let's watch you fail. This is going to be a spectacular failure. I can't wait to see it. Like that was, to me, the whole second half, it was just fantastic like that.
It is like, there's like, it's great, like as a character study too. Even though he is like exactly what you say, like incapable, has none of the tools necessary to succeed, and is like clearly not all with it. It is a great character study in terms of like gender things as well, where like his stated goal is to kill his dad, but like probably his real goal is to escape from his mom, or the more healthy goal would be to escape from his mom, who's sending all these letters, including the one which is like, yeah, you know, your dad wants to come back, he needs help, he's like, I know that he loves me, it'll be great, like you need to go see him at this hotel that's right by you, and like, you know, talk to him, blah blah blah. It's like, whoa, dude, you are overbearing to say the least. And then also like, and so then when he believes he kills his dad, is the first time that he believes that he's entered into more of a masculine space. Like what we talked about last week, where like he wants to commit an action, do an action. Action is important. Action is like masculine, real, direct. And then he reflects on that a bit, because he's also like, he's not masculine. He's not part of that world, really. He's still, and a lot of things in the second half keep cropping up about past memories that are like sort of have homosexual overtones to them. His mom keeps being like, well, you're not one of those boys. You're not one of those boys. Like there's a lot of like consternation surrounding like his sexual desires. And so there's a part on 140. He's like, if you open the door, they might lynch, punch you into pulp, quite capable of brutality. That sadistic curl of the old man's mouth. Of course, that's what she, Judith, perhaps even Edith, enjoyed. The brute force in him. Yes, that's what the majority of women presumably responded to. Always a sacrifice. It had to be with them. Like he's distancing himself, but also acknowledging like the masculinity of his father is what seems to appeal to these two women, and is sort of distancing himself from that part. So it's like to try and find his own identity is like part of this whole like sort of I don't know, book, novel, idea, dream, system, process, words.
I'll show you I'm a man. I'll kill my dad.
Yeah.
What?
Fuck his wife.
Yeah.
No, nothing to see here.
And then he can't do that right. He's freaked out. He's scrambling from tramps. He's paranoid and bumbling about.
I can't find where it is, where it's like, oh yeah. One other thing that stood up, one of the ones that the thing that I was looking for is the part where he's saying like, where he's thinking to himself like, oh, you know, it might be right here, where he's like, yeah, you know, we should live together. This would be great. And he's like, it hasn't even been half an hour. I'm like ready to kill myself. And he's like, gotta get out of here. He's like, all the escaping, we're always escaping. Why always escaping? One of the other things that's interesting from like a psychological schizoid point of view is like he sees himself as playing a part constantly. There's a lot of like almost like he's like acting in a drama of his own making, to the point that the city becomes a stage in certain regards. Like towards the end, when he's trying to get away from the people his dad and the tramp that want to get him, and where he's like not wanting to be with Judith, but doesn't really know how to get away or come back or what to do or what to go. There's a moment where he's like, maybe nothing exists outside of what I can see, like in his dream thing. And he's like, okay, maybe there is a city beyond there, but it feels like very stage-like, as if like the spotlight is only on him, and things outside of there may not be real. And there's a moment like near there too where like one of the tramps is like crawling on all fours and like clucking at him and shit, like where it's like real weird and real like not certain like a faux monster movie sort of vibe. But it's that's another interesting aspect to like his kind of characterization.
No, and I think that's another thing that's weaved in here is all the kind of the Shakespearean references, like you said, like it's a play or a stage, and he's playing a part. I just, I kept thinking about with the changing of identities, dressing as a woman, like it felt very like Shakespearean comedic, like the double roles and like the trickery. And there's even one part where he's by the sea wishing he was Mysterio and could whip up a storm. Like it's just like, she hits us on the head with it, like, hey, here's a Shakespeare reference for you. Bam. Like that's another one. Like you want to go through and highlight that in the color. That would be a really interesting, like this would be a fantastic book to teach for sure.
It really would. I mean, it feels like it just you can unpack for all the little bits that you want to, whatever thread you want to pull on for sure. I found another one of the parts that I thought was really funny is where in the mom's last letter that's been there for weeks supposedly, or she's gossiping, Doreen, you remember Doreen, don't you? Well, she's getting married to Billy, your old schoolmate, the one that gave you those flower things and said they were peas and you had those nasty worms for so long afterwards. It's like so like the sort of like,
come on, Mom, I told you not to talk about that.
The mom is the mother figure as being an emasculating force that like keeps him under her control. It's like so raw throughout here.
Oh, well, you're not one of those queers now, are you? Remember that time you got worms from your buddy and you were just such a little baby boy, aren't you? My little baby boy. Like, how does she even end the how does she end the letter? All my love, darling boy, your loving mumsy. Like even that, right? Like oh, my little, won't let him grow up, won't let him, now I gotta murder my dad. Thanks a lot, Mom.
It's so good. I really love it.
The only way I can be a beautiful butterfly and come into my own.
Yeah. I found the part with where they talk about that. Judith is saying like it's only you, as though you're always playing a part. And she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, Allie. It was that they found what they found in the rug, a bloody dummy, not a body at all. Imagine you thought, and so did I, that not a body. Oh well, what did we expect? After all, there had been the discovery of the thing at the station. They'd all known, of course. And it's just like telling some of the things. She's like, oh, Allie, you should have seen their faces. Even the station manager laughed. Like the fact that they're constantly like mocking him like in various ways is also like, feels like talking from last week of like the incel vibe of it, where he's like wants to be a man, wants to have the action, like all of these kind of like, belittlings and poking fun and laughing behind his back and talking about him are all those things that kind of add into that sort of like toxic male anger. Or could, and sort of do here, but he also like isn't capable. Although he does have sex with Judith.
I know, so he gets what he wants. He's seemingly come into his own. He has replaced his father. He wins. It's
killed off the symbolic. He drowns the dummy.
Good for you. And we get this wonderful little twist and this wonderful voice that kind of takes us out of the book. It's almost, he goes completely silent at this point.
Yeah.
And it's just Judith that takes us off into the sunset. Well, you haven't said anything. You haven't even noticed, Ellie. Look, doesn't the brooch look nice? Oh, no, it's quite all right. Where is it? You don't pin it there. That looks almost obscene. You are one. Really, you are. What do you want for lunch, Allie? Meat or fish? Of course the fishmongers will be closed, though. You could run down and get a couple of chops. Allie, oh, Allie, stop it now. You are naughty. Really, you are. Not now. It's nearly lunchtime. Aren't you hungry? Allie, there's some potatoes over there that need peeling. Allie, don't you think you ought to get new curtains? Oh, sweetie, you won't mind, will you? But I've ordered a cat, a nice brand new Simon's. I went into the pet shop this morning and spoke to a man. He said he had one coming in the day after tomorrow. Allie, what do you want to do? What did you do? Oh, no. It just keeps going and going. And Allie, what are you staring at? He's just looking out. This thing is going on and on and on and on and on. It's like, what have I done? Be like, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it.
Yeah.
You're a man now, Allie. Enjoy. Like,
and then there's the real.
There you are.
And then there's this, which you could interpret. So the opening paragraph of the book begins, window blurred by out of season spray. Above the sea, overlooking the town, a body rolls upon a creaking bed. And at the end, a window just cleaned. Above the sea, overlooking a town, a man motionless, bound by a velvet-covered couch, and a woman whose hands flutter around a butterfly brooch. They stare at a piece of wood, 5 foot by 7, that shakes now and then, an animal thumping its tail. So it like does the parallel in slightly different ways. No longer he's no longer rolling on the creaking bed. He is bound by the velvet-covered couch that's referenced so many times in here, and is now stuck within that motionless moment that you had referred to, but with a new person behind the partition, banging their tail, ready to like disrupt things again and start this whole cycle over. One of the Jungian things that was in one of the books that I was looking at, one of the pieces that the number 3 obviously is all for incompleteness. Like with the 3, you're missing the piece that sort of balances, or like there can be sometimes an imaginary force that seems to be there that has that impact, but 3 is always incomplete, which our next book by her is 3. And all of her books kind of involve 3s, and that the number 4 is the one for completeness. And so they're always endlessly in this cycle, because you'll never find a finishing like moment, or a fourth perspective, I suppose.
Yeah.
A balanced perspective. So you have a favorite line?
Yeah, I do. I had one that obviously means something completely different in the book. I mean, it's like a hugely sexual line, but it was hard not to think about the way she died when reading it. It's on the page 146 in the Delkey version. Like entering the sea alone, alone by the sea alone, by yourself.
Yep.
I mean, then it goes on with like
that's
sexual references. But this idea of like entering the sea and going into the sea alone by yourself. Oh, what a...
It's like both sex and suicide, like the orgasm little death thing you could play with. Like it is, and then she calls him his dad's name. So like,
yeah,
all good. Where is mine? I had it marked here just a second ago. I love when he also passes out after getting the rug. Just like, well, I don't know, how long have I been here? It's like bright now and these people are after me. So it's like so humbling. Oh, this was good too. How to sell yourself, your plans, ideas, dreams to your late father's mistress. They hadn't thought of that. No book, no glossary, no sales talk could ever tell you the answer to that one. The one that I marked as my line of the week is more serious. The conscience only sets in when one is static. Be master of your chosen fate. Don't listen to the nonsensical babble of this whore, a bitch goddess.
Nice. That's a good band name.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So we move on next week to the first half of 3, which there's this. I know that I have 2 random comments. One was Kaya was asking about the photos on here, and I don't know if anyone from End Other Stories can clarify this for us, but I believe they're all from like Larry Goodall's collection. At least this one is. And when she was touring the States, she was in New Mexico and she met him and did a reading from this book with him, and they were friends. I started looking into it before we got on. I don't know the whole story, but I believe they're from his archives, which is what it is. 3 has also got an new intro by Joshua Cohen, who we'll try and have on as a bonus part at some point, who just won the Pulitzer Prize for his book. So congrats to him. And is again like a setup that has 3 characters, 3 points of view, but intertwines like a diary and becomes more experimental as time goes on. the one other thing that I was going to say, and we can talk more about her in the future, is Ann Quin. I think that's how you say it. But she, our friend Emily Hall suggested that her theory is that Quin and Quinn are the same person. That Quin, who also went insane, went truly mad, and had like lots of problems, ended up like her name is like a pseudonym that she chose based on a character in a story that she had written under her real name, which is interesting. But she, at the end of her life, the last book that she wrote that was published was Ice, which is like kind of a sci-fi searching for a woman. The whole world's becoming ice. Everything's got like this kind of like how to like the whole, I don't even want to go into it. But anyways, she suggests they're the same person because Ann Quin, who supposedly died, she's a heroin addict, died with like needle by her side, maybe an intentional overdose, maybe not. But if you put it together, it's Iceberg.
Oh, that's a fun one. Okay.
And I think that's enough to get our Q conspiracy going for the week.
Gotta get that air moved around.
Gotta move that air. Gotta get that good air. Send our good air to China, and China sent their bad air back. Now we gotta
blow it right back. It's called blowback.
In the wise words of Herschel Walker. Anyways, next week, see us, rate us, join us on Patreon. Enjoy your week, and we will see you soon.
Now there's a Halloween flood. It's filling up the basement, and there's a wild wind upstairs. It's rattling the casements. But I'll still make the coffee, and we still make the beds. And the kids are scarred but smarter. Oh, in the city of the dead.